Welcome to TezTalks Radio with your host, Marissa True. This special edition episode was recorded during the Tezos Speaker Series at Paris Plus by Art Basel 2022. Enjoy.
Hello, everyone. Thank you to everyone in the audience, those watching on Twitter and YouTube and live stream sources everywhere. Welcome to our panel, The Rise of a New On-Chain Cultural Economy. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Valerie Whitcare. I work at a company called TriliTech, which is the London hub that supports adoption of the Tezos blockchain. And of course, thank you also to Art Basel, with whom we have partnered for this illustrious debut in Paris, which has been wonderful. And of course, my lovely panelists, who I'll let introduce themselves very briefly before we get into the conversation. Just a bit of background about myself. I joined the sort of Web3 on-chain cultural economy about 9 months ago. And prior to that was an art dealer for 15 years, focusing on photography specifically. And I came to this beautiful world of Web3 and blockchain technology, specifically looking for tools to help solve problems of authenticity in the space. But like many of you here, and I'm sure some of our panelists, just that one tiny question led to a rabbit hole of enthusiasm around what we will be speaking about today. So if I could ask each of you to introduce yourselves, and then we'll kick off.
Hi, thank you for receiving me. I am Ines Leonarduzzi. I am the president of an NGO called Digital for the Planet. And also I am the co-director of a Bureau of Strategy in art cultures.
Hi everyone, thank you very much. Thank you Tezos and all the Art Basel to just inviting me. I'm Jodouin Mitrani. I'm CEO and co-founder of Minted, and Minted is a platform, is a very end-to-end platform to help creators and artists to jump into the Web3 with very easy tools and sustainable technology, of course.
Hi everyone, I'm Frédéric Leifi. I'm the founder of Art Consortium, and we bring tools to galleries and institutions to jump into the blockchain and share ownership.
Hi everyone, my name is Vincenzo De Bellis, and thank you Valerie, thank you Tezos. My role is Director of Fairs and Exhibition Platforms here at Art Basel, and looking forward to have this conversation.
Wonderful. Thank you, everyone. So I guess the immediate first question is, what is an on-chain cultural economy? And I was going to launch into a cursory explanation from my experience, but actually, I'll confess, I sent around some questions to the panelists ahead of this talk. And Frédéric and Jodouin, you both came back with some very interesting responses on what you believe that to be, that I think make up part of the foundation of this conversation. So I'll pass that over to both of you.
Yes, actually, just let me tell you a quick stories about how I just realized that the creative industries and cultural industries was very complicated for the artists, and the digital was a tremendous opportunity for them to jump into a new field, meeting audiences in public. But 20 years ago from now, I was in a studio in Radio France. I was facing a recording of Alexandre Tarot. Alexandre Tarot is probably one of the greatest pianists in Europe, in France. And he was alone in this piano, and I was in the studio just facing how the creation is fairly simple at the end. But when I just realized that all the complexity to help these creators, these artists, to offer his art to the public and audience, and something like 10 years later, I just realized that blockchain could be a very, very good way to help them to promote, but to protect, because artists and creators are facing a very huge dependency today to the platform. It was a good opportunity for them, but now they need to promote and to protect and to get the value of their work. So that's why we were building something like the idea of that we need to find the tools to avoid complexity, but to help creators to understand technology. It's not a no-code approach, it's a deep technology approach with Tezos, but we believe that they need to understand how it works.
And Frédéric?
Yeah, what I hear about on-chain, in fact, I think it's a new possibilities to manage the rights on creation, of course, art, but also music or fashion. And on-chain doesn't mean online. Of course, you have a lot offline with the web because brings people to enjoy art in a new way. But the on-chain will be the possibility to create new kind of relationship with the ownership of the artwork, to share the ownership, and to find new kind of financement for creation, for artists, for museum, for indie brands, etc.
Thank you very much for that. We're missing one crucial piece, though, and I thought Inez might be the person to talk about this, which is community and how valuable that is to this economy. Inez, could you maybe comment on your experience, especially with what you've been doing, and how community plays a very significant piece in this as well?
Yes, of course. Thank you for that question. My own sense of blockchain and how can I find that amazing is that it allows artists, but not only, it allows people to be sovereign of their own creation, to be sovereign of their own data. And this changed everything from the Web 2. We arrived on a technology called Web 3, where everything is decentralized and where everything is transparent and protected. And those are the keywords of the idea, maybe the beautiful idea that we want from democracy and society today. And definitely we've seen the 2 last decades that then community is strong. Even to stand up for a message or a cause, you can attack a person, you can't attack, or it's more difficult to attack a community. If you attack me, hundreds of thousands of people are behind protecting me. This is the thing with blockchain. It can put in failure any big consortium. Sorry for the bad word with the name of your company, but this is nothing to see with you. But the big tech, the big power in place, they are in failure facing the community you can create on the blockchain, and specifically for culture. And what can I see so far is the way that you can create a complete boundless economy, first artistically, then financially speaking. We can talk about that maybe later, but also in terms of society and in terms of how you exist as a musician, as an artist, a painter, whatever. But you exist, and paradoxically, you exist because you're untrackable and you're completely independent while you depend on every other part. So there is something definitely magic, something you talked about. We have to make people adopt this technology. I understand, but I think more powerful is we have to make people adopt a new concept of society based on something completely decentralized. That is the key message for me.
Thank you very much. And Vincenzo, I realize that you're in your team yourself. There probably are more where I was 9 months ago. Part of a bastion, certainly of the traditional art world as we've known it for several hundred years now. But Tezos is a partner of the fair, and we've had the pleasure of presenting NFTs to your community. And I thought perhaps you could speak to your team, or even your audiences, as you understand it, approach to this Web3 opportunity, or perhaps even, I understand there's a lot of resistance as well within the traditional art world. I certainly can identify in terms of the nerves that I first felt learning more about this space. But if you could speak to your team's approach to why is Tezos part of a relevant conversation, and what does that on-chain cultural economy mean for your audiences?
So let me start saying that contemporary art, if we speak about strictly contemporary art, needs to speak about the time we live in. And even though you are right, saying that a lot of people have resistance, it would be blind, for lack of a better word, for institutions like the one I represent now, not to see what's going on and not really to be at the forefront of the conversation. So although we represent really a live event market, we actually are very interested in knowing what's after this and what can work now as a hybrid model and how we can shape a future in which the two worlds really move together into what we can deny will be more and more digital world. In the resistance, though, just to go back to a little bit of your question, I think starts with, and maybe my colleague panelist here can prove me wrong, is that the art, visual art specifically, as opposed to music or cinema or other, is something that usually has been in few people's hand. And it needs to be, in the way this has been always driven, in few people's hand because it's object-based. And when you have a market that is all object-based, then it's really hard to let that object go to some extent. Now, I know we're not talking about this specifically, but the resistance comes from that place of ownership to some extent, and also the selfish kind of mode of dealing with this object. And therefore, we need, as in terms of being more inclusive, more open, more kind of to allow more people, more democratization to the art world, we need to be open to those kind of systems that allow everybody to be part of. And the fair they are getting there. The art world, the museums are getting there, but they're not there yet. So how the fairs can help? We work at a pace that other institutions in the art world cannot work at. Our planning is way faster. The way we react to the changes needs to be faster than other people. So we are the platforms where all these changes, where all this partnership can take place.
Wonderful. You've hit the nail on the head, I think. So I don't want to remove what's been so far a very nuanced and very profound exploration here, but I think use cases is often a really important topic off to which to sort of bounce, to especially to new audiences and those who might still be curious. So I'd love to ask each of you what has excited you or surprised you in the recent past when it comes to this, to what's being done within this economy. And I come to that with the understanding we have mentioned music. We could think about luxury branded partnerships and how NFTs have been used by those as well. But just to kind of anchor this down into real world things and moments that have happened, I'd love to hear from you all some of the things that you've seen in the recent past. Also understanding, by the way, that there is, I think, a huge attention on this topic, but it is a relatively young conversation. So I think it's always important to bring up those particular moments. Jean-Noir?
Well, I think we are at the beginning of this revolution, and probably if you take the time of a revolution, it's not even the first night of the revolution. It's probably the first hour of the economy just moving into a new world. For the artists, we always talk about the value. It's true that it's a very important question for them because they need to get the value of their work. But it's also a very interesting new frontier for creation. If you take the example of a well-known artist in the Tezos ecosystem, it's called Zancan. This guy just came from, sorry for them, but he came from nowhere. And he came from the idea that technology could help him to find a new audience, a new public. And also blockchain and technology, especially on the generative art, help him to just to express a new way of creation, express his feelings on a new media. So if you take this example, and if you take the example of all the artists that just came out from the blockchain, it's true that it's at the beginning of it, it's a matter of inspiration, of creation, and tools. If you take the example of the painters at the end of the 19th century, or the beginning of the 20th century, they had the opportunity to find a new way to create, because some guys just invent the paint in the tube. So they could just move from Paris, move from here, take the train, go to Deauville, and discover new things. And so at this time, technology or techniques are a new way to create for them. So we need to find a way that blockchain, it's not just, you know, a technological transformation or revolution on the ledger. Technology was facing transparency. Everything is very important on this. But at the end, what the only matters is my creation meet the time, meet the audience, meet the public. So let's find a way to open a new frontier for the creators, and explaining to them that they could create, they may create differently on the blockchain economy. So I think it's not only a matter of value, it's a matter of inspiration, and just culture and art is just what binds us together. So we need to face this.
I love how that actually kind of, by accident, maybe translates directly from what you were saying, Vincenzo, in terms of the time, the place, and the audience to create a relationship. So thanks for that. Inez or Frédéric, whoever would like to go first?
As you want.
Okay, I go. Yeah, the main changement, and this is what you said before, is that anyone can be empowered now thanks to the blockchain, and because each of us will be able to drive his opinions and his engagement, he will be able to create some communities, just like you say. And this phenomenon of communities, you can see them on the artist aspect, because they will be able to create something like we call École de Paris, Les Fauves, etc., etc., and some new ones will be created by with these new tools. But this is the same on the public, because the public will be able to support who they like. It could be an institution, it could be an artist, and all this series of community will create new kind of creation and new kind of relationship on the artist side, but on the public side. And this is why it is important for Art Basel to integrate that new kind of stuff, because of course the beginning was with like the cowboy of the blockchain, but now we know that the galleries and the museum will get into that also.
Yes, to me, you know, regarding my engagement with my NGO, I have one core question that I ask, and I wonder every day, and I ask my community every day, is what's the point of progress if we do not progress? I mean, technology is maybe the answer, okay, but what is the question? I could say that like this. So if we stick to this value question, the point is how you talked about value, and I appreciate that, but it's super important to, and I'm sure you agree, I'm super important to distinguish which kind of value, of course financial value, because it gives power in such society that, such as, but also social value. And I'm sure we all do, that we care about society in real life. So that's why also, and I benefit from the moment to precise, and I'm sure everybody knows, but blockchain, Web3, and metaverse are three specific different things. And you can be a huge fan of blockchain and Web3, and you can completely don't understand metaverse. So once I've said that, maybe we can come back on that later, but it was important to precise regarding what I would like to share. you talked about our experience, recent experience that we enjoyed through cultural blockchain. And maybe what I enjoyed is understanding something super, super clear. At the beginning of NFT, maybe like really when NFTs have been democratized, like maybe a few years ago, we've seen people and other artists and maybe some non-artists sold some NFT super, super expensive. And now we can see that most of the value of these things sold mean nothing, have no worth. And it was interesting to think at the beginning of the fall of the cryptocurrencies value, like, what's the point? And is this a sustainable and viable economy? Of course it is. But right now, like we say, when you have the past and then the future, and in between you have this clair-obscur where the monster come out. This is something that we say, right? And of course it will be a sustainable economy, of course, because blockchain is definitely the future of what we want as a society, like I said. But what we realize is, concretely, except for some artwork in the digital world, NFT only have value when they can offer something rewarding in the real life. So how going into the Web3 and using the technology of blockchain and acquiring an NFT on that, and only if it can give you something specific, valuable in terms of social impact or in terms of ego impact, whatever. But if you can have a value in the real life thanks of what you acquire on the Web3, it doesn't exist yet, but on blockchain, then you create value and sustainable value, and you help the technology and as the society. But if it's just to create a different world where you can create something maybe beautiful, maybe valuable financially, but meaningless, I don't think this is sustainable. So this is what I found out, and a nice experience of mine. You can have value, socially speaking, if you can take the value from the virtuality into the reality.
Thank you for that. Perhaps you have something.
Yeah, I'd like to add something because I think Ines touched on something very important that I've been thinking lately. I think this is because of the crash and because of the moment. There was a big hype, and it was a lot of people only considered this whole revolution just a big financial opportunity. So if we believe really that history, and I wrote this in our chat, if we really believe that history kind of comes back in cycles, I believe that this is the moment after what we can call a little bit of a crash where things have to shape up and really being content-based. Because if we want this to be a real revolution, and I believe it's going to be, it has to be, there's no other way, it needs to come from content and not from financial needs or speculation that people have. So I can say, I all have faith that now, because there's almost like a clean slate after this whole hype, I think there's a moment where people are going to take on in a very different way, and whoever is going to be investing, and I'm not talking about financial investment, but content investment, is going to start from a very different approach.
Yeah, this idea of value is very interesting because it's a matter of social value, impact, or maybe on the planet, or just you need to embrace a cause or something for artists. But I think that nothing really good happen in a world of comfort. So we need to take the advantage of this crash. It's a small crash facing the tremendous crash in the history. So we need to be modest about all this. But it's a difficult moment because it's just like Katrina. There has been a hurricane on the artist, and everyone says you're gonna make money, easy money. But it's not like that. It's more complicated than that. So we need to find a way to offer the artist tools to take the cause of changing the way we are facing social impact and things like that. If you take the example of the guys who invented the blockchain, something like more than 20 years ago, they thought about blockchain as a new way to invent a good and transactional technology. They didn't imagine that it would be something like 20 years later, an art matter. They couldn't just imagine that their work, their new way of facing the digital industries and their fear about that a large company would take control. The matter was about transaction, and now it's all about art. Without the artist, I think that blockchain would be a subject for bankers and investors. It wouldn't be an issue for art as it is today. So thank you for that. Thank you. Thanks to the artists to just help us to make the blockchain something just useful for them.
I'll add my own quick experience recently. Some of you might have heard that the Tezos Foundation has recently secured a partnership with the Serpentine Galleries, and we celebrated this partnership last week in London over a breakfast where 2 artists were speaking about DAOs, and to see in the sense of another bastion of contemporary art and sort of traditional trading and the validation of contemporary art, which I was trying to explain to my parents earlier today to no avail, and to see this discussion, which is so foreign to the traditional art community, something that I mean I didn't know what a DAO was, 12 months ago. I'm not going to go into the complexities of it here because they operate in very many different ways, but I encourage you to do some research on this model that I think is very much about the on-chain cultural economy as well. It's changing completely what does ownership mean from an individual perspective versus a collective perspective, and also with collective financial models that can be quite complex as well, which I find really intriguing, adopting particular financial models from an international perspective to be able to execute decision making in a very democratic way, both within art but also just in exchange of information, of book publishing, of just performance projects, and actually even building art collections for investment or otherwise. So I think that's also something that I think has become a fascinating variable in this equation. I'm worried that we're like sort of getting through my questions, but I want to kind of skip through to something else. Because it touches on this democratic aspect, and it also goes towards your comments, Inez, before I go into the sort of future of what we all hope this economy will be. One of the challenges I feel the traditional art world is facing right now, and certainly I faced it in my early days, is that there's so many people trying to take advantage of this technology, that tools are being built across the world with overlapping utility. People are having the same discussion in many different languages, and unfortunately those who can't speak English are slightly disadvantaged, as sort of is a repeat of the traditional art world economy already. But I think there is a huge value to decentralization, but in the traditional art world, a market leader sort of makes the decisions, right? When all of the different e-commerce art platforms first came out, and I remember being at an art fair and people would bring iPads and show me Artbinder and Artsy and all of these different things, and I just, you get frustrated because you're not there to be sold a service. It quickly, one thing becomes what's adopted by many. And I think there's a natural tension there in this on-chain cultural economy versus the traditional economy. And I thought maybe we could explore that tension a little bit more in terms of, how do we help lead the horse to water in terms of you're having established a tool, and bringing ideas together around those things to be able to kind of maximize value whilst also not inhibiting decentralization as a source of innovation as well.
Sorry for that, but I think we need to just look in the back in the history of technology. Something like 15 years ago, the possibility of streaming a video online was something that YouTube just, get into and say, okay, I find a new way to create value. That was Google at the time. But they couldn't imagine that something like 10 years later, Netflix and Disney would be here. So I think for now, it's very difficult to say that our technology, this blockchain technology, there is something much bigger hiding in the front of us. Streaming, it's a revolution of creation. If you just walk in the street of Los Angeles for now, you will see only advertising for platforms. And something like 10 years ago, it was big studios advertised just for movie. And now it's shows on TV, on Netflix. So the creation is just facing a new way. For example, all the economy of the show business, and especially on the movie industry, just shifted from one model to another and offer the creators new opportunities. So we need to be very modest about what we are facing in the technology. See the cloud, for example. The cloud is very important for artists because it's a possibility to storage everything you want somewhere, but you don't know where. It put something like 10 years for Adobe to make understand to the photographer, for example, that cloud was a good thing for them. So we need to take, like a peregrine stick and to go to the artist on the art fairs, to the gallery, to the museum, explaining that we don't know what's going to come up, but we can build something very interesting because it has impact, I think.
Many reactions, actually. First of all, you challenged us again on democratization and what blockchain can bring about that. First of all, maybe we could, you talked about history, maybe I could talk about the genesis of blockchain. Blockchain has been created in 2008 about decentralization and about giving sovereignty and power to people. And after it has been, blockchain has been a pure, innovative reaction to the 2008 crisis, financial crisis. A guy, Japanese, we heard, maybe a bunch of people.
Maybe
we don't
from
know,
Texas.
Maybe a woman, right?
Yeah. Maybe a group of women.
Absolutely. So maybe those persons, because you can't be alone, right? Those persons really wanted a change, a shift for society, like sovereignty and democracy. So this is the first thing I wanted to precise and maybe to remember. Then, we live in a society, a civilization, and we have such stakes that we have to understand that we have two visions of what we do. We have a micro vision and a macro vision. We have a micro vision in terms of how can I earn my life? How can I have a cultural economy more fair for me and my fellows, right? I have to know logistically how can I storage my artwork, right, etc. But we also have a micro responsibility, and like it or not, this is like this. And specifically because just if you have to honor the genesis of blockchain, I mean, I'm not talking since 20 minutes about responsibilization and social impact, just to being nice. I am saying that because this is the genesis and the pure DNA of blockchain. And we have to respect that, I think. So we have a micro vision where we have to take into consideration that the planet is burning, for example, that we have a stake of inclusivity and a stake of feasibility of everybody, we still have a lack of women into this industry, the economy and the cultural economy, industry. So how can we go toward this direction? And right now, when I heard about big tech taking advantage of how you can storage and how you can do that and how you can entertain, etc., I just think that at the beginning, blockchain is an opportunity and an alternative to do something different. And if we use a democratized and a democratizing technology to reinforce and give strength to the capitalistic world, I don't think what's the point, and specifically if it pollutes our home. I mean, blockchain is not a zero carbon industry, we know that, right? But industry is working on that, actors like you, and this is specifically why I'm here today, because you make efforts, Tezos, and we appreciate that. But what's the point of having a super inspiring technology for a better tomorrow for our children when we want to marry that with specifically what we don't want anymore? This is just the question I want to ask.
That's an incredibly good point. I mean, I think I was thinking about it specifically from the tooling and adoption perspective, but I think you're absolutely right to highlight the foundation of this conversation, of why we're here, of the importance of this movement, and exactly to the idea of that this new on-chain economy has a future. It is rising, and there are going to have to be, I think, fundamental ethical and personal and societal decisions to be made at every step of this process, even if we're only in the first hour, of course. With 10 minutes to go, I think if you're all right with my moving to one last question that I want every single one of you to answer, and you can do it in your own time. It's really about what you're excited for in the future. And I think, as much as we can explore use cases and the sort of principles of the technology and what's happening on chain, I'd love to hear from each of you, especially given the diversity of backgrounds in this panel. I think it's really the perfect group of people to be having this discussion, what you're excited for 2023.
Yes. Well, I'm not sure I can answer what I'm excited for the 2023, but I can tell you what I'm excited in this specific case for the future, whether it's near or far.
That's fine too.
Doesn't really matter. And when I say this, is because I believe that there should be, what I'm expecting is the real revolution. I'm expecting this to become a foundational moment. I'm expecting to still see the moment in which, I don't know how many years later, someone puts a bicycle wheel in a museum and changes the art world. I'm expecting this to happen with the Web3 and the blockchain. I still haven't seen it, and it might not come tomorrow, it might not come in 10 years, it might come in 15 years. I don't have the answer, but it will come. And whoever does that, it will change the world.
I was going to say the same thing, so now I'm just super annoyed that you took my answer, so here we go.
Yeah, the changement we see, of course, here we are focused on art, it's normal, but we see that kind of thoughts in any activities, human activities, and all we said about the content, the use, maybe we should try to make people forget it is tech, because finally it's just the background, and the creation of new communities and engagement. I'm very curious, in fact, of what's going to happen in the politics, because if we think about a very long term, we try to invent the individual during the Renaissance, and we have this moving in political area, and this is what we call democracy. And maybe the blockchain will be a new tool for democratic way to be an actor, and because in many areas you have the one who say and you have the one who listen to. And what we try to do with the democracy is that everyone can say. And finally, with these new tools, in any activities, you will have something a mix between the one who act and the one who listen to, and they may be all together finally.
coming from the UK, this is especially poignant right now.
Especially today.
Yes, especially today. Yes, thank you. Inez?
I talk too much already now.
Well, I'm excited to see what you're doing. I mean, we've had very lengthy conversations now. So if I may say, I think that the projects that you have planned for next year are going to be revolutionary in terms of galvanizing women in not just this space, but in arts and culture in general. And I admire you a great deal for having the bravery to step in and not just say it's a problem, but do something about it.
Well, thank you so much, Valerie. Yes, indeed. And thanks to you, because you give me so much energy. But yes, the event of next year that I am planning is about, between many things else, is to put the women at the heart of this economy. And I want them, as many as possible, to understand the cultural blockchain economy. I think this is key to have inclusivity, to have balance. So yes, this is something I would love to see happen.
And if we're going to solve Vincenzo's problem, it's going to be women.
Absolutely.
I mean, we have to admit.
Absolutely.
Yesterday evening I saw a very interesting documentary about how during the war here in Paris and in Europe, something like 1.5 million artworks have been stolen and put into German caves. It's a very horrible story. I believe that maybe something like in 400 years from now, every artwork is somewhere protected forever. So there wouldn't be any problem to find back, the astronome from Vermeer, because the astronome from Vermeer was stolen from the Louvre and put into the personal collection of Hitler. So it was a horrible story. But this piece of art, if we can help to invent and to promote the next Vermeer, and this piece of art would be on the blockchain forever, maybe we can do something good. That's it.
No, I think that's a perfect resolution. I think you're absolutely right. My kind of background coming to this in terms of authenticity stems also from that element of safety and of safeguarding heritage, of safeguarding innovation and genius, whether it be an on-chain cultural economy related specifically to fine art or otherwise, whether it be performance, music. I think John Cage would have been super excited to mint his composition on chain. So not just to have a new form of art be present at a cultural institution, but also to really be able to preserve and conserve culture and what our history means to us. So thank you, everyone. We've got just 2 minutes left. So if one person really quickly wants to ask a question. All right, thank you. Sorry it's not for more, but
Thank you. Thank you very much for the talk. I recently read an interview from French artist Valerie Granger, and she contributed to the rise of net art and more recently crypto art. And what struck me was how she had to fight very hard to negotiate her royalties with such new kind of art, right? And then to be actually accepted in galleries. And with NFTs, it was quite inherent to get royalties for the creators. And recently, we saw a new trend where royalties are actually taking off the creators on platforms like Magic Eden and Solana, for instance, or other PFP projects, profile pictures NFT projects like DGods. And I wanted to have your opinion about that, maybe your vision about the future of royalties.
I think, Frédéric, maybe if you want to start that, as we sort of spoke about it too.
No, I think we're going to integrate royalties into a smart contract. And so it makes that the artist will have some income from the secondary market. This is a first point, but it will allow him to follow the fortunes of his artwork in times. And it's going to be the same for the young gallerist who try to put on the highlight young artists, and then when they are successful, the artists go to Gagosian or Perrotin, and the young galleries stay alone in the corner. So with that kind of royalties, it might be interesting for the artist, but also the gallerist.
It's also a matter of understanding what's a smart contract, and it's too late for now to explain that. But what's very interesting with the standard that especially Tezos invented is that it's possible, to rewrite the smart contract. The smart contract is on the blockchain, but we need to find a way to change the attributes of the smart contract in the time. So the standard of AFA2, it's a smart contract from Tezos. It's very good for that because we can manage the smart contract in the time. So I think royalties, it's not a photography of one time. It's a moving way of distributing the value around the time. And also because artists are not alone creating. They are creating with, for example, a photographer. He has a model. He has several people around him. So he needs to share the value, to get the value and to share. And the smart contract is for this something like extraordinary revolution that we need to embrace, definitely. Thank you for that.
I agree. I would say, whilst the sort of in perpetuity aspect of smart contracts, I think, is for another discussion. It's very, very important that the traditional art market understand the values and the structure of this new on-chain cultural economy. And I think they will soon see the advantages. So thank you, everyone, for participating and for being here today. And thanks again to my panelists.
Thank you, Valerie. Thank you very much.
Thank you.